Hello there and welcome to our production of The Jive. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of Himawari Videos, Karen and myself, to this hour-long program in which we'll include the following on this video. We will be covering the Jive Basic program, which I'm sure you all already know by now, seeing that you've all bought a copy of Brian and Karen's Basics. We will dance the Jive for you, the basic routine to music. We will then go through the Jive routine, naming all the steps, after which we're going to discuss briefly under the headings of movement, technique, and characteristics of the Jive.
Finally, we're going to take the basic routine and we're going to develop it for you. So, pop your shoes on and let's start with the Jive.
We will now name the steps for you. We're going to begin with a little basic in place. A change of place with a double underarm turn. Continuing with an American spin with right to right hand hold. Another American spin with left to right hand hold. And a change of place, leading the lady into a whip. Continuing with another whip, this time a curly whip. And another whip, the reverse whip. Continuing with the throwaway runaway, 2 kickball change actions and another throwaway runaway. This time 4 kickball change actions, the man making a full turn on the 4 actions. A throwaway, change of place, into some walks, slow walks and quick walks. A throwaway into a stop and go. And another change of place, followed by a change of hands behind the back, and continuing the Jive basic routine with a rolling in of the arm with a spin. One more time, a rolling in of the arm with the spin. The man's going to change hands and do a little boogie-woogie action. Boom. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have learned those basic routines, because throughout this video we're going to be referring to many principles that we can adapt to these routines to make them much more interesting to dance. So, we're going to now continue this video with our 3 headings: technique, movement, and characteristics.
And it's my job to lead you into the technique. Okay, so here we are now at the technical stage. Don't panic. Once again, it's technique. It's only there to help you move easily across the floor. What I need to bring to your attention now are that we're going to be discussing chassés. Okay? Don't worry, these can be danced sideways, they can be danced forward, they can turn, they can also be turned into a locking action. So, with the aid of my partner, let's look more closely at the chassé action. So here we go. As you can see, I've got a pair of feet that are itching to go, so let's start straight away with our jive chassé. Jive chassé to right, please, Brian, if you can keep your feet under control. Excellent. And a jive chassé to left. Let's look first of all at the footwork. We've got ball, ball, ball flat. And again, ball, ball, ball flat. Super. You may be allowed to let the heel just kiss the floor. It's not against the technique, but what we're aiming to get is ball, ball, ball flat. That's super. Okay, let's look at it again. Now, what I want you to understand is we can start to turn the feet as chassis, and we can start it turning. Please understand that the chassis don't have to be aligned. They don't have to be straight. We can keep them turning in any direction. And if I ask Brian now, if he does a jive chassis turning but overturns the last step, and he does a chassis and he makes an extra amount of turn, the footwork will change. So now we've got ball, ball, ball. And now we will do ball, ball, ball flat. That's excellent. So the last thing I need to bring to your attention with regards to the chassis is if we're doing a locking chassis. So if I get Brian to demonstrate it first, 3 steps once again, locking forward, excellent, and one more time, locking forward again, la-ta-ta. Let's just look at the footwork of that. If Brian could demonstrate that once again, we've got ball flat, toe, ball flat, and again, ball flat, toe, ball flat. Let's look at that going backwards. And a locking action back, and a locking action back again. Super. And the footwork for that would be toe, ball flat, and again, toe, ball flat, ball flat. So that brings us to the end of the chassis section. Very important, because that is what the jive is constructed of. The last thing we're going to look at is the rock action. The timing of this is quick, quick. And it's danced excessively throughout the jiving routine. So we've got Brian already demonstrating the jive rock there for you. Quick, 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 quick. Excellent. What I need to bring to your attention, as the back foot lowers, you'll see a slight release of the front knee. And then we go back onto the front leg again. And the last thing you need to understand is that the knees do not lock. So the knees are not locked back. They're still quite free and easy, ay-ya-ta-ta. And if you could go into a side chassis now, and a side chassis, and back into a lock. Super. And if we've asked him to control his feet long enough, we'll see if he closes them, and I'll control them, and we'll carry on with just a little bit more technique. So, with the aid of my partner, let's look a little bit more at these chassis and compare them to a cha-cha chassis. There's 3 main differences which I'm going to bring to your attention now. So here we are looking further into the chassis held within jive. I've asked Brian onto the floor to join me. Let's first look at the poise before we can even start to move. I'll ask Brian to face this direction so you can see much easier. What we must understand in the jive is that the body weight is held over the balls of the feet. So we're much freer, and the ease of movement is maintained within the balls of the feet. So movement, changing direction, is much, much easier. The alignment of the body, it's no good just having your head over the balls of your feet, because now you'll be falling onto your next steps and you'll have no control. So, once again, as we've mentioned in the other videos, let's align the body up. Body on top of legs, head on top of the body. Free and easy. That's what I really need you to understand. There is no restriction. Once we get the body aligned up, all I'm asking you to do is to be holding your body weight over those balls of the feet, and the body is free and easy. So even if we ask Brian to move the body weight back, we can still have the body weight maintained over the balls of the feet. And that's the priority, thank you, in this jive dance. Okay, I'm now going to discuss the 3 differences between the cha-cha-cha chassis and the jive chassis. Very, very different chassis completely. In the cha-cha-cha, I discussed on the other videos, which I hope you've purchased, the main information with the cha-cha-cha chassis is that the action is flat, okay? What we're doing in the jive chassis is there is a slight bounce. There will be a slight bounce action, and that's because of the timing. So first of all, let's look at the timing of the jive chassis. And it is, if I just ask Brian to demonstrate, we've got a 1, a 2 timing, and a 1, a 2 timing. So that's 3/4, quarter, 1 timing. Very, very different to the cha-cha-cha timing, which is, if I ask Brian to demonstrate the cha-cha-cha, half, half, 1. And that is maintained at a flat, consistent level. And once again, and a half, half, 1, finishing with a straight leg. Okay, that's the first difference, is the timing. The second difference is the footwork. So if we now look at the jive chassis, the jive chassis footwork will be ball, ball, ball flat. And again, ball, ball, ball flat. So if we now look at the cha-cha-cha chassis, we've got ball flat throughout, ball flat, ball flat, ball flat. And again, and ball flat, ball flat, ball flat. So once again, you're seeing a big difference between the jive and the cha-cha-cha. The last important information that makes it very different from the cha-cha-cha is, of course, the hip action. So let me bring your eyes to my partner's hips here. When we're commencing a jive chassis, we're delaying the hip action. So the step commences, but the hip is actually going in the opposite direction. And a 1 and a 2. And as we're going on to the 2, the hip is delayed and it arrives much later to commence the next chassis, a 2. And a 1, a 2, and 1, a 2, a 1, a 2. Now, thank you. If we look now at the cha-cha-cha chassis, you'll see that the hips are moving with the feet. So as the first step of the cha-cha-cha commences, the hip begins to move across. On the second step, the hips are central, and on the third step, the hip is straight on top of the legs. So I hope from that point you can see that there are 3 major differences held within the cha-cha-cha chassis and the jive chassis. So, there we are at the end of our technique. Please remember the 3 differences between the cha-cha chassis and the jive chassis. Please also remember the footwork that we discussed earlier on about all the different traveling chassis, the locking chassis. They're all imperative throughout the whole basic routine of our jive choreography. One last thing that I must point out to you, which I did forget to mention earlier, is with that body weight, I know we're doing competitions and I know that we are trying to be the champions, but the body weight in the jive as well as the samba is the most difficult to maintain because we are projecting out to the audience, and the biggest problem that arises is that as we're projecting out to the audience, our body weight begins to slip back onto the heels. So please make that a major priority, that you keep your body weight held over the balls of the feet throughout the whole entire dance. Well, that brings me to the end, and without further ado, let's start moving on to
movement. Well, after Karen's rather swift exit, I am left to tell you a little bit about movement. Movement is the quality of movement from one step to the other. So, for instance, as I've mentioned before, if you take a couple out of the final or a couple out of the 24 and put them on the floor at the same time, you should see quite a big difference.